Today I'm talking about the Altra Escalante 2 after 100 miles. 11.86 miles, 8 minutes, 47 seconds per mile, 140 beats per minute today. And with today's miles, I got the Altra Escalante 2 to the 100 mile mark. Now, before I give you my thoughts on this shoe after that 100 miles, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that I bought with my own money. No one sent it to me or reimbursed me for the purchase price. And no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my thoughts or footage before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. Now, with the disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the Altra Escalante 2. Now, this is my first Altra that I've run in and my first zero drop shoe that I've run in. And I think I will have to say that I really enjoyed it. And I'll tell a couple of things to those of you who are out there skeptical about zero drop shoes or about Altras or about minimalist shoes in general. I'll tell you that minimalist shoes and Altras aren't necessarily the same thing. This certainly is not a minimalist shoe. While it is zero drop, there is 24 millimeters of stack height in here. It just means that there's 24 millimeters of stack height in the back and 24 millimeters of stack height in the front. And what are you standing on in terms of those 24 millimeters? You're standing on Altra's Ultra Ego midsole material, which is a foam that I really enjoy. Every time I step into these shoes, I'm always pleasantly surprised just a little bit about how much I like the way that this shoe feels. It reminds me in a lot of ways of React foam, but it's slightly softer. Softer maybe isn't the right word for it. So the way I think of it is, let's say you're bouncing a ball like on the ground and you bounce it and it comes back up, you bounce it and it comes back up. If that's how React foam feels, Ultra Ego foam feels a lot like React foam, except for when you're bouncing it, it comes back a little bit slower. But that ends up working out in a really pleasant way for me. In my testing of this shoe, I was able to run on a variety of different surfaces, road, grass, and dirt. I was also able to take it up and down some pretty steep hills. Not that we have tons of elevation here in the Midwest, but here in the bluffs of Guttenberg, Iowa, I am able to get some pretty long and steep hills, at least for someone like me who's normally used to running in the flatlands of Chicago. And when put to those tests, the Altra Escalante definitely passes with flying colors. Now, I mentioned that the Ultra Ego foam reminds me somewhat of Nike's React foam with subtle differences. I'd say that similarity also extends to the upper as well. It's a really comfortable upper, it's an engineered mesh, but in a lot of ways it reminds me of Flyknit. A slightly stiffer version of Flyknit, but the hints of it are definitely still there. It's a very breathable material, very flexible. It's molding and contouring a little bit to the shape of my foot over the miles. And this toe box is so roomy though, there's also a crease kind of developing here where the shoe is folding as I take each stride. In the back of the shoe is super floppy back here. There's not any structure at all, which I really appreciate. It saves on weight and it takes away some of those layers of armor that a lot of brands are insisting on maintaining back here. Now, if you're a person that needs guide rails or likes that heel cup type of support, this shoe might not necessarily be for you. I've been really enjoying it though, and the floppiness hasn't bothered me because of the way that this shoe fits overall. This engineered mesh, this knit-like material, definitely has a lot of a sock-like feel to it. The tongue is very minimal, and the material on the sides of the foot hug your foot in a very comfortable way. The overall feeling is that this just molds to your foot really nicely. The only thing that I'll notice back here in terms of my 100-mile review is that this padding that's back here is starting to see a little bit of pilling. So there's a little bit of wear and tear happening back there, but other than a little bit of the molding of this mesh material in the front toe box, I think that it's holding up fairly well for 100 miles. Moving to the outsole of the shoe, there's not a lot of wear that's on this shoe. I'm not going to comment on how weird I think this kind of foot pod design is. I think there's ways that you can make it so that the outsole rubber and the midsole have grooves cut into them so that the shoe is still very flexible without literally making it look like a foot. But that's the choice that they've made, and overall it works for me, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. The only wear that I'm really seeing on this rubber, which I'm finding to be a little bit surprising, is a little bit in some of the normal spots here. This is the normal spot where I get a lot of wear and tear normally on my shoes, but I'm seeing only a very slight amount of it here, and it's actually extending a little bit further than I normally see it. So some differences, some nuances that I'm detecting in my foot strike based on the wear pattern of the rubber. The other thing that I've noticed is that normally I see a lot of wear right here, but for this shoe, I'm seeing a lot of wear way at the top, which is interesting because I don't think that I've been really going all the way up to the top of my toes in this shoe as I've been using it primarily as a daily trainer, but this is where the rubber seems to be wearing for me, right here at the top of the shoe. So a couple of surprises, but in terms of the actual durability of this rubber, I think it's holding up really great, and I would expect to be able to get a lot more miles out of this shoe. So overall, what has it been like for me, someone who normally runs in 8mm, 10mm heel drop shoe, transitioning to this 0 heel drop shoe? The transition for me has been not that noticeable. Part of it is probably because the way that I run in shoes, I test a variety of different types of shoes. I've only been using it sparingly. So it's not like I bought the shoe and then 15 days in a row I ran in it. I would run in it 1-2 days in a row, give it a break for a day, test run in something else, and then come back to it. So there's been some level of gradualness to my transition to this 0 heel drop shoe. But another way to put it is I don't think there's really a transition. It's just a different shoe that I run in. Now granted, at least in the beginning, when I would run in the shoe, the following morning, the back of my calves might feel a little bit tight, the location of it seemed to be like on the back of my leg, in the calves, higher up, kind of a little bit below the knee. So that's where I was feeling a little bit of tightness, but that's only something that I felt as I was walking around. It wasn't something that I felt as I actually ran in the shoe. So the adjustment period for me was minimal. The only time that I think that I didn't really enjoy running in the shoe was when I was running downhill. So when I'm running downhill, you're doing a little bit more heel striking as you're trying to slow yourself down as you're going down some of the steeper declines. That's when I really wished that I had a little bit more here. It felt a little bit kind of unstable. Going down hills quickly felt a little scarier than it normally does. But other than that, I felt like on flat terrain is when I enjoyed this the most. Going uphill, it was fine. The response curve of that Ultra Eco Foam was very pleasant for uphill climbing on paved road surfaces. It's just those downhills that I didn't love. But going back to that kind of response curve or the softness of the Ultra Eco Foam that I'm talking about, it's that makes me think that this isn't really a speedier shoe. Although the upper all feels like a very nimble, very fast shoe, the midsole foam for me just felt like a daily trainer. It's not something that I really enjoyed as I was trying to run faster paces. So maybe if I had a slight decline and I could pick up the pace a little bit, I didn't really feel like the shoe loved being in that pace. For me, the shoe shined the most when I had it at my regular easy/moderate paces. that's when I felt like the shoe seemed to be happiest, and that's when me and the shoe got along the best. So those are my thoughts on the Altra Escalante 2 after 100 miles. My first Altra, but it certainly won't be my last. This shoe definitely makes me want to try other Altra shoes, and especially now that I've got a lot of dirt roads that I'm running on for this summer, it's opening my mind to other possibilities that are out there from Altra. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos of me testing out Altra. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. But thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?